Okay, so now that I've talked about, where the greenhouse gas emissions are coming from and what happens with the different gases, how are they being reported? What are the different standards that are out there? So there's a number of different standards, but there's three that really are kind of global frameworks that most people look at. The most common one is the Greenhouse Gas Protocol that was put together by the World Resources Institute and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. This is one that I would say the majority of the world uses. It's what's used with the Global Reporting Initiative, CDP. A lot of them follow the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. In the United States, the EPA has put out its own greenhouse reporting program that tracks facility level emissions from the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, because there's mandatory reporting for any company with over 25,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent in their Scope 1 and 2 emissions. A third one is out of the United Kingdom, their DEFRA program, which stands for Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. But basically, what they're trying to do is put specific emission factors and methodologies that are specific to the United Kingdom for companies to use when they're calculating their greenhouse gas emissions. So I talked about the standards. Where are people reporting? Well, the Carbon Disclosure Project, or now it's called the CDP, is the largest place where most organizations, public and private, are reporting their information. These are the largest companies that are putting the greenhouse gas emissions and reduction targets, and they're reporting it to the CDP. The Climate Registry is another one here in the United States where it's transparent standards to calculate, verify, and publicly report greenhouse gas emissions. And a lot of states and municipalities are reporting there. A lot of organizations that are having to respond to cap and trade mechanisms and say California or in the Northeast using RGGI report using the Climate Registry. The Global Reporting Initiative, now this is a framework for typically communicating corporate social responsibility efforts or sustainability reports. And as part of it, they have a certain number of questions and indicators around greenhouse gas emissions. And they're also a place where a lot of people are publicly reporting their greenhouse gas emissions using the three standards that I talked about on the previous slide. So what are the principles for greenhouse gas reporting? Well, before you just start going and gathering a whole bunch of data, it's always really to stop and reflect and say, okay, what's relevant? You want to make sure that the most material aspects of your emissions are being reported. Your biggest impacts are being reported. It does no good to say, well, we're a business consultancy, for example. We jump on planes a lot. If we leave that out of our greenhouse gas inventory, it's not really relevant what our total overall emissions are if we just report what we're doing in recycling and waste. You want it to be complete. So you define your boundary as to what is your organization. All of the, are you just looking at your corporate headquarters? Are you looking at all of your company? Are you looking at franchises? Are you looking at your supply chain? You have to decide what your boundary is and make sure you're completely reporting on all of it. Consistency. You need to make sure you're using the same methodology from year to year. You can't just well, this year it looks good, so we're going to use this one. Oh, wait, there's a different methodology that'll make us look better next year, so we're going to use that one. You can't do it. You got to be consistent. You got to be able to compare apples to apples over time. Transparency. Again, you need to be able to not only address the relevant issues, but you have to have a clear audit trail. It can't just say, hey, these are our emissions, trust us. You got to show where the data comes from so that people can follow it and see what's the actual primary source this is coming from. And accuracy, lastly. You want to make sure that your emissions reporting is not understating or overstating your emissions. So making sure that you're accurate. There's going to be times where you may need to make estimations, and I'm going to get to that later in this module. But you want to make sure that these 5 principles are captured: relevance, completeness, consistency, transparency, and accuracy throughout your reporting.